We speak about many rights, like the right to vote, the right for equal pay, and women's liberation, which is very much important in our society. But the right to have sex, the right to sex, for a man or a woman is a fundamental soul right. Sexuality is the property of the soul. It's not the property of society. It's not the property of the parents to give it away. A soul right to sex is very important because sex is a power to grow into adulthood. Sexuality does not come out in an adolescent in an attempt to make a baby. Sexuality develops in an adolescent in order to produce an adult in a physical realm, in an animal realm, in an emotional realm, and even an intellectual realm. The soul needs sex for an entire life as a means of growth. There's, of course, good sexuality that makes you grow and bad sexuality that will destroy your soul. Well, we need, obviously, to make a difference between these two kinds of sex. But it's amazing that the women's movement, the women's rights movement, never insists on the right to sexuality, the right to have sex, the right to fuck, a woman's right to fuck any man she wants to fuck. As many men she wants to fuck, right? Just like a man. A man does not have a sense of chastity or virginity as being prime. Who wants to marry a virgin? A virgin is a woman who is still a girl. She has not experienced womanhood. She has not developed and flourished into womanhood. And that's what men want to marry, a virgin. This is the Stone Age. I mean, one of the more advanced values are the American values of prosperity, individuality, equality for all, and apparent not racism, which is not true of the United States. The black community is still very much separated from the white community. The American values are American white values. And in these values, the right to sex are not included. You're not allowed to have sex. Even in advanced families, these old shows like Roseanne, even Roseanne and her husband used to have sex as adolescents, but prevent the sex in their own children who are adolescent. Sex is a need for growth. Sex is not an attempt to have a baby. We have to get out of this idea that sex exists just to have babies. What happens when the right to sex is violated? When we force a soul not to have sex for years, for decades. That mutilates the soul. It kills the soul. It creates an extremely serious depression. An unfulfilled sexual life is one of the greatest burdens in a soul's life. And therefore, we need to liberate sex. We need sex out of the closet, not gays only out of the closet. The whole subject of sexuality is still in the closet. There's still a shamefulness about sexuality. We don't understand that sex can be for love, sex can be for pleasure, sex can be for power. Sex can be not just for marriage and serious relationships. We're not an advanced society. Sex is still a very complex subject. It's a shameful subject. We don't talk about sex like it's some kind of perversity, even today in the year 2020. Women fight for the right to vote. Yeah, that's very important, the right to vote. The right to vote for an asshole who will never do anything about the people. That's the kind of democracy we have. Most of our politicians come from wealth that doesn't give a shit about the poor. They're good about speeches and about showing their families, but when it comes to facing the problems of the people, like rent, mortgage, food, car costs, and lowering these prices, they don't do anything about it. There are no government enterprises. They rely on taxation, and they don't do anything. So what is it, the right to vote, to stand in line to vote for a government who will not do anything? Is it more important to have the right to your own sexuality, the right to express yourself sexually without any repercussions, uh, the right to explore your sexuality, to grow your sexuality, and one day, after all that growth of romantic and sexual experiences, one day marry. Not that marriage comes before the sex. That is that is a formula for hell. When there is no sex before marriage, you don't even know what kind of lover you're marrying. Isn't that important? Parents are one of the biggest forces to cripple a soul sexually. When a soul is not able to express itself, herself, or himself sexually, there is a soul crippling that goes on, which means there's a prevention of adulthood. A boy wants to be a man, a girl wants to be a woman, and sex is a very big catalyst to promote adulthood. And parents prevent it. Authorities prevent it. If you go to school, there's a sense that this is celibacy here, that sex and romance are not important, but they are important. They should be even included in subjects in school. Sex and romance are very big subjects in our lives. If we fail romantically, if we fail sexually, we're going to suffer the consequences our entire life. If we become poor, if we have money problems our whole life, we're gonna suffer our whole life. But the school system doesn't cover these: money, sex, and romance. What kind of school system is that? We have in our society 30-year-old virgins, 40-year-old virgins, souls that are walking ghouls because they haven't had sexual experience or fulfilling orgasms, which are necessary for soul growth. Our religions are all against sex. They think it's some kind of animal behavior we have to tolerate in order to make children and a family. Sex doesn't have its rightful place. We don't honor sex as one of the greatest joys of life, one of the greatest forces of life, one of the greatest powers by which the soul can grow. Sex is still very secretive. Sex is still in the closet. If you look at Amazon, Apple, all the streaming devices, there's no sexuality. There's no implicit sexuality. You cannot see a naked woman. You cannot see a naked man. And the act of having sex is forbidden. It's in the underground. You got to go into these underground sites to actually see sex like it's some kind of satanic event going on. We have, life is in the Stone Age. It hasn't integrated sex as something sacred, as something holy, as something that is beneficial to life. Why are we so afraid of sex?